All right, you've got that first date coming up, and let's be real, the whole dinner and a movie thing, been there, done that. You want something memorable, something that'll really spark a connection, right? Well, you're in luck, because today's deep dive is all about ditching the cliches and getting creative with 110, yes, you heard that right, 110 unique first date ideas.
What's fascinating about these ideas is that they're not just random suggestions. They're grounded in some pretty compelling psychology, all about why certain activities can actually help build attraction and connection.
Okay, so no pressure, but our first date could be make or break based on science. I'm intrigued. Hit me with the wisdom.
Well, the blog post we're diving into today really emphasizes the importance of shared experiences, especially those that are new and exciting. Dr. Aron, a renowned social psychologist, has done a lot of research on this, and his findings suggest that these kinds of experiences can create a sense of closeness and intimacy very quickly.
That makes sense. I mean, think about it. When you experience something exciting or unexpected with someone, it creates a shared history, a story that's unique to the two of you.
Exactly. And those shared stories can be incredibly powerful in building a connection. It's not just about having fun. It's about creating memories that you can look back on and laugh about, reminisce about.
Yeah.
It deepens the bond in a way that just sitting across a table from each other might not.
So forget candlelit dinners. We need to be jumping out of planes and scaling mountains for that first date magic.
Well, maybe not quite that extreme. Though there's certainly something to be said for adrenaline-pumping dates. But it doesn't have to be about grand gestures. It's more about choosing activities that push you both a little outside of your comfort zones that create a sense of shared adventure.
Okay, I'm ready for adventure. Give me some examples. What kind of out-of-the-box dates did this blog suggest?
Well, they cover a lot of ground. But one that jumped out at me was rock climbing. It's physical, sure, but it also requires communication, trust, and a willingness to be a little vulnerable with each other.
I can see that. If you're belaying someone, literally holding their safety in your hands, that's a level of trust you don't usually establish on a first date.
Exactly. And even if you both totally suck at it, which, let's be honest, is a possibility for a lot of us.
Speak for yourself. Just kidding, I'm with you.
Right. Even if you're both clinging to the wall for dear life, it's a shared experience that's bound to create some funny stories and break the ice.
So rock climbing builds trust, creates shared memories, and potentially provides endless entertainment as you recount your less than graceful maneuvers. Got it. What else?
How about this? Zip lining. Soaring through the air, breathtaking views. Talk about an adrenaline rush.
Okay, now we're talking. I can already feel my heart racing just thinking about it. But how does that translate into attraction?
Well, this one's all about dopamine. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist who studies love and attraction, says that activities that trigger a release of dopamine, which is associated with pleasure and reward, can actually intensify feelings of attraction. So that nervous excitement you feel on a first date, your brain might actually be interpreting it as attraction.
Wow, so we're literally tricking our brains into falling for each other with a little zip-lining action. I like it.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment where your brain is primed for connection.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. What if heights aren't really our thing, though? Any less vertigo-inducing adventures on this list?
Of course. For those who prefer to keep their feet firmly on the ground, the blog suggests a trapeze class.
Wait, like Cirque du Soleil trapeze?
You got it. Talk about memorable, it's playful, it's challenging, and it definitely requires a certain level of trust to launch yourself into the air knowing someone's there to catch you.
Okay, that's one way to test a date's reflexes. Catch me if you can.
Exactly. And this one plays on that idea of shared vulnerability, which dating expert Dr. Taichi Shiro talks about in his book, The Science of Happily Ever After. He suggests that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with someone, especially early on, it can accelerate intimacy and create a deeper sense of connection.
So stepping outside of our comfort zones, being a little vulnerable, and hopefully not face planting into the safety net. Got it. What if we're looking for something a little more serene?
Well, in that case, how about a hot air balloon ride? Peaceful, romantic, and those panoramic views. Definitely a recipe for romance.
Okay, I have to admit, that does sound pretty magical. Floating above it all, watching the sunrise, it's definitely a far cry from the usual dinner and a movie.
And that's the point. Remember what we talked about earlier? Novelty, excitement, shared experiences. A hot air balloon ride ticks all those boxes. Plus, there's something incredibly romantic about being suspended in the air, surrounded by nothing but clouds and the person you're with.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm adding hot air balloon enthusiast to my dating profile as we speak. But let's say hypothetically speaking, of course, that our ideal first date involves a little less floating, more like putting the pedal to the metal.
Ah, so a little healthy competition is what you're after. In that case, the blog suggests duck-go-kart racing. Now you're speaking my language. Nothing says, let's see what you're made of, like a little friendly competition.
Right, strapped into those tiny cars, channeling your inner speed demon. I can see how that could be a blast. But isn't there a risk of getting a little too competitive on a first date?
That's where the friendly part comes in. But you're right, there's a balance to strike. Dr. Jeffrey Hall, a relationship researcher, actually found that playful competition in small doses can actually strengthen bonds. It's all about keeping it lighthearted and fun.
So maybe avoid trash-talking your date as you zoom past them on the final lap.
Probably a good rule of thumb for any first date, actually. But yeah, the goal is to create a sense of shared fun and excitement, not to crush your date's ego before you've even ordered drinks.
Right, good point. Okay, so go-karts are a go, but what if bumper cars aren't really cutting it in the excitement department? Got any other competitive date ideas up your sleeve?
How about laser tag? It's teamwork, strategy, and running around in a dark arena trying to avoid getting hit by beams of light. What's not to love?
Okay, that does sound pretty epic. And it's active, but not like marathon running on a first date active.
Exactly. And you get to tap into your inner child a bit. Remember how much fun it was to play tag as a kid? Laser tag is like the grown-up, slightly more high-tech version of that.
Plus, who doesn't love the bragging rights of being crowned laser tag champion? Okay, this is bringing back some seriously competitive memories. I can see why this one made the list.
It's a classic for a reason. And speaking of classics, we can't forget about Trivia Night. It's a chance to show off your impressive knowledge of random facts, work together as a team, and maybe even learn something new about your date.
Okay, this one is definitely my jam, but I have a confession to make. I get a little 2-0 into trivia, like full-on game face, aggressively whispering answers.
Well, you're not alone. A little friendly competition is one thing, but it's important to remember that a first date is also about getting to know each other and having a good time. Dr. John Gottman, a leading marriage researcher, actually cautions against being overly competitive in relationships. It can create unnecessary tension and conflict.
So maybe tone down the aggressive whispering.
Exactly. Let your date shine too. After all, you're not there to prove who has the most random knowledge. You're there to connect with another human being, hopefully, one who shares your love of obscure facts and trivia.
Right, good point. Shared passion for useless trivia is a love language, right?
Absolutely. So go ahead and geek out over that history question, but remember to keep it lighthearted and fun. And if your date happens to know more about 80s hair metal bands than you, take it as an opportunity to learn something new.
You're right, it's all about the learning experience. Okay, so we've covered the adventurous dates, we've talked about playful competition. What about for those of us who prefer our first dates a little more low-key?
Well, for a more relaxed and romantic vibe, you can't go wrong with a classic picnic. Find a scenic spot, pack some delicious food and drinks, and enjoy each other's company in a beautiful setting.
All right, we're back and ready to dive into some of the more unconventional first date ideas from this list. You know, the ones that make you go, wait, people actually do that on a first date.
And what's so great about these more unusual ideas is that they can be incredibly revealing. They push you both outside of those typical first date conversations and really give you a glimpse into each other's personalities and comfort zones.
Okay, so less what's your favorite movie, and more, let's see how you handle wielding a sledgehammer. Got it.
Exactly. So with that in mind, let's talk about the rec room. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw this on the list, I thought it was a bit aggressive for a first date. But there's actually a method to the madness.
Okay, I'm listening. Convince me why I should be smashing old computers instead of sipping cocktails on a first date.
Well, it's all about controlled release. Dr. Ryan Howes, a clinical psychologist who specializes in stress and anger management, talks about the therapeutic value of catharsis. In a safe, controlled environment, allowing yourself to release some of that pent-up energy can actually be incredibly freeing and stress-relieving.
So it's like hitting the gym, but instead of weights, you're wielding a crowbar and a whole lot of repressed frustration.
Exactly. And when you do that alongside someone you're just getting to know, it creates a sense of shared release, a kind of we're in this together mentality. Plus, let's be honest, there's something inherently fun and liberating about smashing stuff.
Okay, you've got a point there. It's not every day you get to unleash your inner rock star and demolish a room full of old electronics. So, rec room, check. What other out there date ideas caught your eye?
All right, how about this? A fortune teller.
Wait, really? As in gazing into a crystal ball, predicting our future kind of fortune teller?
You got it. Now, before you dismiss it as total hocus pocus, hear me out. Whether or not you believe in the mystical side of things, a fortune teller can be a fantastic conversation starter.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. I'm imagining those awkward silences being filled with pronouncements about our love lines and lucky numbers.
Exactly. It takes the pressure off of those typical first date questions and allows you to dive into some deeper, more personal topics. You can talk about your hopes, your fears, your dreams for the future, things that might normally take weeks or even months to come up organically in a relationship.
So it's like a fast track to intimacy disguised as a mystical experience.
Exactly. Plus, it's a chance to see how your date reacts to the unconventional. Are they open-minded and curious, or do they shut down the idea immediately? That in itself can be pretty telling.
You know, I never thought of it that way. Okay, fortune teller date. I'm adding it to the list. What else you got?
All right, this one is for the nature lovers and the culinary adventures out there.
Yeah.
Mushroom foraging.
Okay, now we're really venturing off the beaten path. As someone who can barely identify a portobello at the grocery store, I have to ask, why mushroom foraging for a first date?
Well, for starters, it's a chance to connect with nature in a really unique and tangible way. You're slowing down, being present in the moment, using all of your senses to explore the natural world.
Okay, that does sound kind of meditative and romantic, but I'm still hung up on the identifying mushrooms part. What if my date's idea of a wild mushroom is the questionable one growing between their shower tiles?
Well, that's where a little expert guidance comes in. You wouldn't go mushroom foraging on your own without doing your research right. Look for guided tours or workshops led by experienced mycologists.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. So not only are you getting some fresh air and exercise, but you're also expanding your knowledge of fungi and hopefully not accidentally poisoning your date.
Exactly. And there's something incredibly satisfying about discovering those edible treasures hidden in the forest. It's like a real-life scavenger hunt, but with delicious rewards.
Okay, I'm sold. Mushroom foraging it is. Now let's revisit some of those dates with a twist that we touched on earlier, because I'm still a little curious about how those work in action.
Of course. Which one piqued your interest the most?
Well, the silent disco definitely stands out as the most intriguing, if not slightly baffling concept.
It's definitely a unique experience, but that's part of the appeal. You're each wearing headphones, choose your own musical adventure, and yet there's this shared experience of being in a room full of people, all dancing to their own beat.
Right, and as you mentioned earlier, it takes the pressure off of constant conversation, which can be a relief on a first date. You can dance, you can sing along to your favorite songs, you can take your headphones off and chat. When the mood strikes, it's the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And let's be honest, there's something incredibly endearing about watching someone completely lose themselves in the music, even if it's a genre you wouldn't normally listen to. It shows a sense of playfulness, a willingness to let loose and have fun, which are both great qualities in potential partner.
Okay, silent disco, you're back on the list. What about breakfast for dinner? Because that one just speaks to my soul.
It's a classic for a reason, and as we talked about earlier, there's something inherently comforting and nostalgic about breakfast food. It's familiar, it's delicious, and it evokes a sense of childhood joy.
Plus, it's the perfect excuse to indulge in pancakes at any hour of the day. But beyond the menu, why is this a good first date option?
Well, it's unexpected. It shows that you're not afraid to break the rules and have a little fun. Plus, it's a great way to gauge your date's sense of adventure. Are they up for trying something different, or are they rigidly bound by traditional dining norms?
Right, who needs fancy appetizers when you can have a waffle bar?
Exactly. Embrace the unexpected, keep it lighthearted, and don't be afraid to order a side of bacon with your mimosa.
Words to live by. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the thrift store challenge. This one sounds like a recipe for laughter and some seriously questionable fashion choices.
It's all about embracing the absurdity of it all. Set a budget, maybe choose a theme, and see who can find the most amazing or maybe the most hilariously awful outfit within the time limit.
I can already imagine the fashion shows and the good-natured ribbing. It's like a team-building exercise for potential soulmates.
Exactly. And it's a great way to see your date's personality shine through. Are they competitive and strategic in their thrifting approach, or are they more go with the flow, drawn to the most outlandish items on the racks?
Okay, you're right. This is way more than just a shopping spree. It's a social experiment disguised as a date.
Exactly. And who knows, you might even walk away with a one-of-a-kind outfit to commemorate the occasion.
Or at least a great story to tell on our second date, assuming the fashion gods are in our favor.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the ultimate takeaway from all of these unique date ideas. It's not about ticking off a checklist or following a script. It's about creating a shared experience that's memorable, authentic, and hopefully a lot of fun.
I came into this deep dive feeling a little stuck in my dating rut, but now I'm feeling inspired. Forget the typical dinner and a movie. I'm ready to go all out with a silent disco, a mushroom foraging adventure, or maybe even a trip to the rec room.
That's the spirit.
Mm.
Remember, the best first dates are the ones that reflect your personality, your interests, and your willingness to step outside of your comfort zone.
And who knows, that willingness to embrace the unexpected just might lead you to someone truly special.
Exactly. So to all our listeners out there, go forth and date creatively. We can't wait to hear about all your adventurous, romantic, and maybe even slightly chaotic first date experiences.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into the world of unique and memorable first date ideas. We hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have. Until next time, happy dating.